Cozy Corner of Cinema. This is episode number 218, being recorded on Tuesday, June 2nd, 2026. Here we are for the final part of my 20 favorite films of the 21st century so far. And we are also at the halfway point of the year. So, well, I guess you could count it for the end of June, but either way, here we are, 6 months into the year. Time flies, and I hope you all have been using your time wisely, not doing anything you don't want to do, not associating with people whom you don't want to associate with, living every single day in its most beautiful way possible, working on your art, doing what you want to do, just enjoying life, man. It's a beautiful day out. The cats are sleeping. You hear the birds outside. You smell the freshly cut grass from across the street. It is a wonderful, wonderful time to be alive and to follow our dreams. But all right, man. So here we are. Yeah, the last part. And just for fun, I was thinking up my favorite films of the last 5 years as well. This was just a total kind of random aside. I was just like, I was just looking at, some films released from 2020 to 2025, and I had about 60-ish films that I had to trim down. And that's part of the reason why I don't really want to do ranked lists anymore, is because I have films on here that were technically ranked lower than the year, ranked lower than other films the year that they were released for me. And here they are ending up on my favorites list. I still think about them, still ponder about them, but I thought just as an aside, I'm not going to talk about any of these. I'm just going to list these off. This list is also on my Letterboxd, but for my 20 favorite films from 2020 to 2025, do I want to list all the directors? No, I'm not going to click on all these. But anyways, in alphabetical order, we have A Fire, After Sun, The Bike Riders, Brian and Charles, Broker, The Brutalist, Familiar Touch, Friendship, The Green Knight, Hold Me Tight, Licorice Pizza, The Monk and the Gun, Montana Story, Nowhere Special, One Fine Morning, Oppenheimer, Pig, Red Rocket, The Seed of the Sacred Fig, and Sentimental Value. That was narrowed down from about 60-ish, maybe 65. I was just going to throw it together for fun, and I did, but then I was looking at my list, and having to cut some really, really, really great films was painful, man. Funnily enough, that was actually more painful than doing this 20 favorites of the 21st century so far, because with these I was really kind of going for gut reaction. I was really kind of going for, I didn't really think too hard about it, because my mentality was, if I have to really kind of think hard about it and really try to ponder, then is it a favorite? I mean, there are ones, I did briefly look at one point, and there was one film that I was like, oh man, I actually did forget to include that one, and I really want to make a point of it, and that one was 127 Hours. But I looked at it and I'm like, no, these really are the ones that I've been able to sit with for a great amount of time. Some action films, some comedies, dramas, films that I've just watched again and again, and really just had a big impact on me. And that's why I was kind of I was hesitant to include anything too contemporary in terms of the last 5 years. The newest being After Sun, which that was about as far as I was going, because enough time had passed on that, and I had seen that film 6 or 7 times now, and above all else, that was one that I have really sat with in the time that it's been released. But either way, we're gonna finish it up here with the last two films in alphabetical order. I'm gonna get a sip of this coffee, which is half gone and kind of warm, but very delicious. Pod coffee, as opposed to K cup coffee, is so, it's like night and day. And I like my K cups, especially in the morning. You're going to work, you don't have time to make a full pot. And I know there are maybe coffee enthusiasts who can tell me otherwise. You can say, you got to have it a certain way, this and that. I know what I like, and I like this coffee. Actually, I was at a steakhouse once, and I thought the coffee was actually superior to the steak. The coffee was pretty amazing. But anyways, we're not here to talk about food. We're here to talk about one of my favorite filmmakers' return. In 2011, written and directed by Terrence Malick, is The Tree of Life. Man, what a phenomenal return. This might be one of the best comebacks ever in film. And when I say comeback, I don't mean as if he did something egregiously bad and then he came back. I mean, Terrence Malick is a filmmaker who has long periods of time without making films. And that's why he's such a fascinating, one of the reasons why he's such a fascinating filmmaker. You can look at his career almost in sections, where you have the 70s work of Badlands and Days of Heaven, both phenomenal masterpieces, I would actually go as far as to say. Then he takes a break for 20 years with The Thin Red Line in 1998, which I like a lot. And funnily enough, I have not seen The New World from 2005. I own it, I have not seen it, and I could not tell you why I haven't seen it yet. But he comes back in 2011 with The Tree of Life. And this sort of starts a mini, I don't want to say resurgence, but a mini wave of films very similar in style. He would go on after this to do To the Wander from 2012, which is okay. He did Knight of Cups in 2015, which I actually think is a great film. Then he did Song to Song in 2017, which I didn't see. And then finally, at the time of this recording, his newest film, which I think blends the new and old styles of Malick, with A Hidden Life in 2019, which is just terrific. But yeah, Terrence Malick is such a fascinating filmmaker, such an enigmatic filmmaker in a lot of ways. There was a book that was written about him that I have been really eager to read. I gotta really get on that after I'm done with the stack of books I got here. But he is someone who is truly a visual director. These incredible looking films, man. And they all are distinctly their own. I would say, you could say that his newer, maybe To the Wander up until Song to Song, those three I think feel closer together in terms of how they look. But even The Tree of Life is such a swing that I remember when this came out, the divisive and jarring reaction to it, especially for a lot of people who I remember at the time were not even aware of Malick as a filmmaker, or at least were not aware of how different he was going with this. Maybe they were aware of it, but had they seen Days of Heaven, had they seen Badlands, which are so, filming wise, they're so different. There's you're gonna find almost no tripod shots. There's no still shots in any of this. The camera is always flowing and always moving, which is why these era films, they feel so together in that way. They are very ambitious. The camera is always, it's almost like flying, like you were literally a fly on the wall, but not in a nauseating way, more so in a way where you are just kind of circling like an entity in these people's lives. And they have these long monologues about life, about faith, about where we go after, about what it means to love one another. And when this came out, I remember people were hailing it as brilliant. They were hailing it as one of the best films of the 21st century. And I remember distinctly people saying this was one of the worst films of the year. People were saying this was ridiculous. I remember seeing this theatrically, and 2011, it's 15 years now, and I was so taken aback by it, even when I was young enough to not fully be able to appreciate I think some of the more deeper meanings with the family aspect, especially in my own life. Like I was saying with Silence, when you're relating your own experiences into a film, I think that's what makes art age so much like a great wine, where over time it just gets better and better, and you really start to peel back more of it. There are films I watch that I get something entirely different out of than I did 5, 10, even 15 years ago, and this is one that I've only seen maybe twice, and I have never forgotten it. I saw this theatrically back in 2011, and then when Criterion put out that release, I think that has both versions of the film. I think I watched the director's cut on there. I don't know. Whatever version is I gotta remember. If I don't, I man, my Blu-rays are in the other room, so it is extended. I can't remember if I had watched that cut or not, but I remember on that second viewing, being so taken aback by it, which is actually going to be an interesting kind of comparison, or the same thing I can say with the next film talking about. But the way that the film takes its time, the way the film has this gorgeous photography, just being with this family, being with these characters, because it's a film that if you're with it, you are with it. Because at first, it can almost seem like hard, it can almost seem kind of hard to gauge. We see these characters at the beginning, seemingly disconnected. We have Sean Penn who's monologuing in this really kind of barren, empty house. Brad Pitt, we don't know his relation. We just see he's getting a phone call. Jessica Chastain is there as well. There's something distressing going on, and we're like, what is happening? And then from there, we start to examine the complicated relationship this young child, Steve, played by Ty Sheridan, and Jack, played by Hunter McCracken. I think, from what I can remember, the film primarily focuses on Steve, and his complicated relationship with his father, his intimate relationship with his mother. It's a very loving relationship, and sort of trying to find this back and forth. I'm sorry, for the life of me, I can't remember. I think it was Jack, and people are going to be saying you love the film so much you can't remember exactly. Like I said, I specifically did not rewatch any of these films. I'm trying to remember, but I think it was Jack who was the primary focus of his relationship with his father. His father can be very rough with him, be very physical with him. Not in a way where it's abusive, but it's a way where we get this character played by Brad Pitt, and he's trying to be a good father, but he almost seems like he has no idea really how to go about this. He is very stern with the kids. He wants his very kind of ideal life, and he has no idea. He feels so disconnected, so detached from these people that they end up growing up feeling this disconnection and this detachment from their own father. And that's why I love the scenes with Jack and the parents are just called Mr. and Mrs. O'Brien, played by, obviously, like I said before, Brad Pitt and Jessica Chastain. But I just love some of those sequences, with Jack just with his mom and the kids with the mom, and you just see that back and forth with them. You see that feeling of isolation, not just from Brad Pitt, but from really his own life. He's really trying to find his way in the world, but he has no real sort of guidance. He has no real kind of flow. And what does that do to a person? And also their place on Earth, because there are sequences in the film, there are stretches where we're seemingly going in different periods of time, not necessarily from just the main kind of setting of the 50s to some 30 years later or whatever, but we get, all the way back in time, like far back, and the relationship between certain creatures. I don't want to give too much away with that stuff, because I think in part of just peeling back everything that's going on, all the meanings and all this, it is an experience as well. The narrative of this is out of order a lot of times. It's not really too concerned with, I guess, not even necessarily hand holding the audience, but it really is like once you're in the flow of it and once you're with these characters, time almost feels like it could be anything. It doesn't really matter how long it's been, aside from a literal, like, okay, we're jumping forward in time where these are the same characters that are older, as opposed to like when they're kids, and it's like, has it been a week, has it been a month? It doesn't really matter, because it's about these feelings that are going through them. It goes without saying. You can just watch this trailer. You can look at any kind of images from them. It's one of the most gorgeously shot films I think I've ever seen. I said before that Malick's always had just incredible DPs working on his film, incredible. Look at Days of Heaven. That film is gorgeous, and here we have Emmanuel Lubetsky, who's the DP on this, who, he has worked with Alejandro Gianaritu a lot. He did, like, Birdman. He did The Revenant, Gravity for, is that Alfonso Cuarón? I think did that. But you can, like, see a lot of his work. And he ended up doing the cinematography on, Malick's next couple films, minus Hidden Life. Let's see, yeah, he did To the Wonder, I should say, Knight of Cups, and then Song to Song. And those are also made very close together, I should say. So I wonder if it was a thing where of just they were just filming a lot. And then, anyway, it doesn't matter. My point is though is that you can just see that free flowing, that gorgeous, not just free flowing, that's one thing, but that gorgeous kind of photography in all of this. Just certain shots of just natural light coming through a door, or the more grandiose sort of sequences. Like there's one shot that was used as they use as the cover for the Criterion. This icy kind of field of Jessica Chastain, this icy kind of like landscape that she's walking in. One shot that I always loved in this is when the camera is like flying upside down and we see the shadows of these kids playing in the street with the against the pavement, and it's just so hypnotic. It's just so beautiful. This is a film to absolutely see on a big screen, and I would love to have seen this in IMAX. I was very thankful to have seen this theatrically, and it's one that I've only seen it twice, but of all the films on my list, I've been the most eager to rewatch. It's a lot to take in, and I think it's one that when there's a new film that's out, films have to kind of take, they have to have a grace period, I would say, to determine the real kind of lasting quality in this. Because the fact of the matter is that a film like this, being, I guess, so derided when it was initially released, and the fact it was so divisive, of just these extremes of it's great or it's awful. And then now here we are 15 years later. I can confidently say this is one of my favorite films ever. I think this is one of the most beautiful films. And it makes you kind of sad in a way, because it's like, will we ever get another Terrence Malick? Will we get one of these filmmakers who can do something like this on a budget with a cast like this? I mean, I think about like like the Malicks and the Kubricks. I just don't think that's, at least now, I mean, unless there's some sort of kind of new American wave again, I really don't see this happening. It's kind of, that's why it's crazy when you see these just fantastic filmmakers just can't get funding for their films, or someone like Martin Scorsese has to, like, he's doing stuff on like Netflix and stuff, he just can't get funding. And I don't know if it's because he couldn't get funding, but it was Netflix being very I think he actually was having trouble getting funding for The Irishman, but Netflix was like, "Hey, you're making this too long," blah, blah, blah. And it's crazy. I think there are so many, especially now, there are so many just talented, just like 20-something kids who are making YouTube stuff. I mean, look at this past weekend. I'm recording this. We have the two biggest films in the country right now are two films made by 20-year-olds who started off on YouTube, and there they are. Backrooms and Obsession are just these critical and financial hits, and that's fantastic. Great for them. But I do kind of wonder. I mean, is there a young 20-something filmmaker who doesn't want to do another horror movie? And that's not throwing those aside or anything like that, but I'm just saying, it's like, okay, well, to me, at the end of the day, they're just horror movies. They're not lasting for me. It's like, I think of these filmmakers who, just are ambitious. Like, where are the next Malicks? Where are, I don't know. It's that's a whole other conversation, but it's just kind of a miracle that we can still get something like this from, I think, just a total, just master filmmaker. One of these directors who was just born to make films, man. Just this amazing visual eye. It's this film, I think it's just so haunting and emotional and beautiful, man. It's one that very soon I'm just really eager to rewatch this. It's just, there's a lot to talk about with this, and I am kind of rambling on, so I'm going to move on from there. But man, I think this is just, for fun recently, I happened to rank all the Palme d'Or winners I had seen. I had seen, how many was it? I've seen 54. And The Tree of Life ranked in the top 5 for me. That's how much I love this. And I rank this above some of my favorite films like Blow Up by Antonioni, and La Dolce Vita by Fellini, and Viridiana by Buñuel, and just these phenomenal, incredible films. And I mean, The Tree of Life for me is up there. It's a film that has really touched me, and I am just so overwhelmed emotionally by it. Not that I'm crying or anything, but it's such a full meal of a film, and it is such a profound and moving and just incredibly heartfelt film, man. I really, really love this film. This is one of my favorites, and I would love. Malick is such a fascinating guy, and I hope that he does another film. But if not, I mean, A Hidden Life is a great film to end a career on if he was to do that. I know he did some like short stuff. I think he was involved with like some documentary recently or something. was it Prospect that he was involved? I forgot what it was. There was some documentary he was involved with. Um, but either way, Tree of Life, absolutely masterful, absolutely incredible. And for a director who does very non-linear stories, or in this case did a very non-linear story, we are going to one of the great linear stories, one of maybe my favorite crime film of the 21st century. I don't know. I don't want to choose favorites, but my gosh, what a phenomenal film we have here. We have, is this based off a book? I gotta look that up. I don't know. Yeah, it has to be. Okay. Directed, the final film right here, we have oh my goodness, directed by David Fincher is Zodiac, written by James Vanderbilt, based on the novel by Robert Graysmith, and the name of the novel as well is going to be told in just a moment. It's just called Zodiac. Okay. Zodiac, man, oh man, I am not a true crime guy. I'm not a true crime guy at all. It's just not my thing. And this does the two things that break through for me. Well, number one, it makes me interested in true crime. The Zodiac Killer is so fascinating. That whole era is so fascinating. It is it's just I don't even know what to say. It's just fascinating. Keep an eye out for the Zodiac Killer. When did that come out? Was that 1971? The movie came out. That's a ridiculous film by Agatha. I quote that film all the time. There's one part in that film where a kid, oh gosh, what the hell was it? A kid, a guy helps a kid out, and the ma's like, say thank you to him. And the kid goes, I don't like him. And it's just ridiculous. Like, this dude pushes a guy in a wheelchair down a flight of stairs. It's ridiculous. Now, far less hokier is David Fincher's strongest film, in my opinion. And probably the strongest the strongest crime film of the 21st century. Because the second thing it does is that it really makes you feel as though you can catch the Zodiac Killer. You are with these characters, and you go, I am so engaged with this film that although I basically know the conclusion, and the Zodiac Killer is so fascinating. There's been leads, there's been false ends, there's been so many questions still about this case, about these murders. But you watch the film and you go, my gosh, I sincerely believe we can get to a conclusion here. This also has, I don't know when I mentioned it, it has one of my favorite needle drops ever in a film, which is Hurdy-Gurdy Man, which Tarantino has said, I forgot where he said it, may have been on Bret Easton Ellis' show. He said that no one can do that better. That was one that he wanted to do, but after this, he can't do it. But this is true story. Obviously, 1968 in San Francisco, where these these murders are happening. I mean, the real Zodiac Killer, is sending in letters to the newspaper, basically kind of taunting them, saying, "Come get me. If you had done this, you would have caught me. You guys are slipping up. This and that." We follow a couple different characters, three different protagonists here. Well, really one main kind of protagonist, but three, I guess, faces of the film. No pun intended, because I think it's actually the DVD cover. We have Robert, played by Jake Gyllenhaal, who is a cartoonist. He does a lot of puzzles. He's able to decipher one of the codes early on they get. Paul Avery, played by Robert Downey Jr., I think he was a journalist at the newspaper as well. I don't remember. And we have David Todd, I don't know how to say his last name, played by Mark Ruffalo. He's an inspector. He's a detective, trying to figure out what is going on. We got a great casting here as well. John Carroll Lynch, who every time I have seen him since in a film, I always think about how good he is in this film. And what this film does, Chloe Sevigny as well, who comes into the second half of the film as Robert's, I forgot if they were married or just his girlfriend, but she comes into his life and just sees how obsessed he is, and how it's not even necessarily, at a certain point, it's not even about the act anymore. It is about the uncertainty, about not knowing. There's one line that I forgot who said it, but basically they're saying that, it's been years since the Zodiac Killer, any murders linked to the Zodiac killings, to the Zodiac Killer, I should say. And they're saying, there's been so many more serial killers and more crimes since in the city. What is it about these killings that you keep going back to, that you just keep obsessing on? And it is the idea of not knowing, of that, the fact that there isn't an answer. And even when you watch this film and the leads that it has, I know there are hardcore, crime junkies who can lead you in the right direction, or point out why this person doesn't work or this person doesn't work. But man, you watch the film and it has a couple different kinds of people where you're like, man, it could be this. There's a great sequence where you feel on edge with Jake Gyllenhaal as well, where somebody invites him to the basement. And at that point in the film, you feel the paranoia of the city around you, where the Zodiac killer is saying he's gonna bomb a bus, and you're just like, especially if you don't know the story. I would love to show this to someone who had no idea what the story was. 'Cause I knew the main kind of parts of it, but some of the specifics I didn't know. And I remember when I watched this back in 2007, I think I rented this from like Movie Gallery or somebody had this, and I liked it. I was like, okay, this is like a good quality crime film. But then it was one that I think I rewatched it 5 or 6 years ago, and that's the last time I rewatched it. And it was just one of those second viewings that you only wish for, where like kind of with the Tree of Life as well. Even though I already loved that the first time, but where the second viewing, you've already seen, you know what's going to happen, you know what scenes are going to hit, but it blows you away. And I remember being so captivated by this film. I was like, I was like Jake Gyllenhaal watching this film. I just could not take my eyes. I was obsessed with this. Not that I'm going off and trying to see, I can solve the Zodiac killings, but it was that one where I'm like, man, like I know the outcome of this. I know the Titanic's going to sink, but like, man, I still feel like there's gonna be a different outcome. That there's gonna be a situation where we can get we can get the Zodiac killer, and the scenes of violence as well are horrific. I think the one scene everyone points out to is the stabbing in the field, and I mean the act of violence itself, it's just one of the most chilling. It's funny. You can watch a horror movie with a guy in a mask and he's slicing people up, and and that's whatever. That's fine, but well, that's fine. Obviously, I'll do that, but then you watch this, and I think this is one of the most disturbing moments of violence I've ever seen in a film. It feels so realistic, and the actress, man, her screams they're blood curdling. It's like when I was watching Benny's video, and when the girl gets killed in that at the beginning, it's like, man, that is like makes the hairs in your arms stand. But just the way that scene is built up, where the slow approach against this like beautiful kind of like lakeside area, and that slow realization that this person is approaching you and they have a weapon, and it's like, where do you go to? The way that whole scene plays out is the best in my opinion of David Fincher's career. I mean the best or your favorite. When I say the best, I'm talking about my favorite. David Fincher is a filmmaker who I have an on and off kind of relationship with. I don't totally connect with a lot of his films, but this is the one. And, Fight Club is great. Seven is great. I like his films. Don't get me wrong. He's never been a filmmaker where I'm like, man, that is one of my favorite. Like, this is the only one of his films where I could say, like, yeah, this is one of my favorite films. Like The Social Network, is good. And, I think the only one of his I straight up don't like is Mank. I don't know what he was doing with that movie. That movie was a total mess. With good performances. I mean, Benjamin Button I like as well, but it's fine. But Zodiac was the one that, man, it just totally hit me, and I'm just running out of time, I see, as I was about to ramble on some more. So I'm going to cut that thought off there, just give kind of a quick outro. But yeah, that's my 20 favorite films of the 21st century so far. I have about a minute, and I'm going to run through all 20 of these really quickly. Here we go. 127 Hours, Adaptation, Aftersun, The Assassination of Jesse James by the Coward Robert Ford, Battle Royale, Crank High Voltage, Dunkirk, In Bruges, Killer Joe, Manchester by the Sea, Napoleon Dynamite, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, Phantom Thread, The Raid, The Rider, Silent Step Brothers, Training Day, The Tree of Life, and Zodiac. Thank you all so much for listening. I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day, your evening, your night, wherever you are. God bless. Work on your art. Stay true to yourself. And every day is just so precious, man.